You're tuned in to Shake, Rattle, and Goal, the official podcast of your Springfield Thunderbirds.
Going that into the slot, Conklin with space, fires, he scores!
Hosted by Matt Baker and Steve Forney. A show that's everything Springfield hockey, with interviews including players, coaches, and staff.
The Springfield Indians repeat as the Calder Cup champions.
Listen to this podcast on all major streaming platforms and wherever you download podcasts.
In his first year at the helm, Kevin McDonald and Drew Bannister have the Teamers in the Calder Cup Finals.
Watch the podcast on the official Shake, Rattle, and Goal YouTube page at SRG Podcast.
And now, here are your hosts, Matt Baker and Steve Forney.
And this episode number 29 of the Shake, Rattle, and Goal podcast is proudly brought to you by our friends at White Lion Brewing, a new location in Amherst, and of course in Tower Square in downtown Springfield, your go-to pregame spot for Thunderbirds games. And now also by our friends at YOLO Healthcare Consulting, bridging the gap for those traversing the healthcare landscape. And by our friends at Landscaping That Fitz for all your lawn care needs, proudly serving the East Longmeadow, Agawam, Springfield, and Wilbraham areas. Alongside Matt Baker, I am Steve Forney, and we're going to get right into it as Matt and I were guests and had a guest. It is Jacob Steve from the St. Louis Blues Fan Forum podcast, where we talk to all things Blues and Thunderbirds. So let's get right to it.
Hello there, everybody, and welcome to episode 65 of the Blues Fan Forum podcast, your source for Blues news, views, and fan interviews. I'm your host, Jacob Steve. Joining me this week is we have a duo all the way from Springfield, Massachusetts. It's the Shake, Rattle, and Goal podcast. What's up, guys?
How's it going?
How we doing, Jacob? Thanks for having us. This is awesome.
No problem. This is going to be, I think, just an action-packed episode. But kind of before we get going, first off, introduce each of yourselves, and then kind of give me a background of the Shake, Rattle, and Goal podcast.
I'll start. Yeah, so my name is Matt Baker. I'm a teacher here in Western Mass. I teach phys ed. Big fan of the Thunderbirds, and for me, being a fan of an AHL team, you kind of have to find what grabs you, and I was hooked by the way the Thunderbirds outreach to the community, what they've been able to do for my family. I have two younger kids, two young boys who love the game, and just seeing their smile going to an AHL game and all their community and fan engagement, and that kind of is what hooked me to be a fan. And one day, Steve and I were just kind of chatting, and hey, there's no podcast for the Thunderbirds, so let's do one. And that's kind of how we started SRG. Steve, go ahead. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Steve Forney. I'm actually the public address announcer for the Thunderbirds. And what makes that cool and our podcast cool is that, I sit center ice in between the penalty boxes, so I'm right in the thick of the action. Matt has a different view as a fan. So when we see things happen on the ice and we talk about it after the fact, it's nice that we get sort of different perspectives on what's going on the ice. But yeah, I've been the announcer this is my 8th season here in Springfield. I did take a year and a half off to announce for the Bruins. So I was up traveling. For those of you who probably don't know, we are in I call it the forgotten part of the state. Boston's out on one end. We're 2 hours away, and we get no funding. We don't get our roads salted. We don't get our potholes filled. Boston doesn't even know we exist. It just got to be a little too much, and I wanted that hometown feel. And yeah, I grew up in this town. My dad was taking me to these games when I was a kid. I had my birthday party at Springfield hockey games, and now, being the announcers, it's awesome. I get to bring my kids now, so. But it's like Matt said, it's nice to have ourselves a little niche here where we can communicate to the people of Springfield, have players on. I know the players, the front office. I know everybody listens to the podcast, so it's good, but a lot of pressure. But
yeah, right.
No, we're having a great time doing it. This is, I think, episode 29 for us. So,
wow, okay.
So we're enjoying it.
So did you guys just started this year?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you do the same thing like once a week.
Mm-hmm.
Is that your goal? Cool, awesome. Yeah. What's the reason or the story behind the Shake, Rattle, Goal name?
So the for Springfield hockey dating back to about I'd like to say the 70s, their song when they scored goals or when they won was Shake, Rattle, and Roll, which I forget who even sings it, but it's sort of one of those old school 60s style songs. And, we were thinking of a name, and Matt, way more creative than I, came up with the name Shake, Rattle, and Goal. But yeah, after every win, they play Shake, Rattle, and Roll while the players are at center ice, hoisting their sticks up in the air, and Shake, Rattle, and Goal was kind of a natural fit. So it works out. But again, it's one of those, it's a borderline Western Mass inside joke.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Well, as I was looking at it, I had no idea. I'm like, it's kind of random. Like, that's the best you could come up with. But now it makes a whole lot more sense.
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough to find on Spotify because you type in Shake, Rattle, and all you get is the song Shake, Rattle, and Roll. And you have to type it and Goal in order to get to our podcast. But we're there, I promise.
You guys exist. You're there.
Yes.
All right. Cool. Well, we kind of already mentioned, I think we have a lot that we're going to get to between all of, obviously, the connections between Springfield and the Blues, all the players that have gone back and forth, the coach that has gone back and forth, or not back and forth, but started with you guys and now with us. So we got a lot to talk about. Before I kind of get through that, I'm going to kind of update the listeners on the most recent games. So since the last episode, Tuesday, we played at Colorado, or actually we were home against Colorado. Lost 3-4. Would have loved to get a win there, but kind of like an expected loss, I guess. Like, if you can't beat Colorado, it's like darn, but kind of expected. Then we played Thursday at Ottawa, 5-2 win. Big game for us. Just needed that win. Saad, Pareko, Neighbors, Kairu, and the Neighbors again get the goals. And then Saturday at Minnesota was a huge game. Needed a win. Got a win with like an asterisk because we got it in overtime, and we really didn't need Minnesota to get an extra point, but we'll take the 2. Kairu, clutch. He's been on the chopping block, I think, all year, but comes up with a hat trick to get us that 5-4 win with Saad scoring the game winner in overtime. And then we're recording Tuesday night. So last night was at Vegas, and I kind of have a story I wanted to tell on this. Do either of your kids, I know you guys said they play hockey and they just got done playing baseball, but do any of them play soccer?
Yeah, my kids, yeah.
Yeah, me
Okay.
too.
So this was Monday. I was getting tweets from Jeremy Rutherford, and he was talking about how the boys are ready, like all these direct quotes from either Thomas or Shen or Bannister about how these boys are ready to go. Like, we know what's at stake. We're ready. Like, it just gave me, all the quotes he was sending me gave me just this energy that I'm like, they're going to come out here and just dominate. And it reminded me of a story of my younger brother who played goalie for our high school soccer team, like varsity goalie, for 1 year. He just went out his senior year and decided to go play. Well, regional finals, they're getting ready to play like the regional final against a team that they should lose to. And the assistant coach is like, I'm going to go check on Zach. I'm going to go see if he's okay. So walks over into the 18-yard box. Zach looks at him and says, "Get the out of my box." And then Lammers turns around and he goes, "He's fine. He's ready to go." I'm just like, that's kind of the energy that I was getting from all those tweets. Was like, these guys are just locked in, ready to go. And I was really excited for Monday night's game. And then we lost in overtime. So it was great to, Vegas is a really good team. Like, obviously returning or defending Stanley Cup champions. Got a lot of injuries, but needed a win there. Didn't get it. Lost in overtime, but the point, again, kind of helps. But we're still looking glim. So
yeah. Real quick, if you don't mind, we'll do the same kind of, I guess, quick for the Thunderbirds.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think the story down here has been Jekyll and Hyde, and they came out Friday night against Charlotte, who they played a bunch, and they played really well against, and absolutely laid a stinker, and they got shut out against a goalie who they performed well against. And then Saturday night they come out, Napoleon Dynamite night. Pedro and Napoleon Dynamite were both in the building. Both of the games sold out. They played against Syracuse, who's much better than them in the standings, and absolutely took it to them, Matt. I mean, they just blew them. It was like the watching the two teams play And this has been sort of the theme. It's like one night they just look so bad, and then the next night they look so good. And that's what we got more of this weekend, was just this Jekyll and Hyde of looking terrible against a team that you should beat and looking really good against a team that's better than you. It's weird.
Yeah, I mean, right. I mean, we start the week 1 point out of playoffs, and you end the week still just 1 point out of the playoff. And for us here in Springfield, it's always been, I call it like, the points are there for the taking. You just reach up and grab the points. They're there. These are winnable games, beatable teams. And sometimes they come ready to play, and sometimes they don't. That's sort of been our thing this year here in Western Mass.
But it sounds like it's a match made in heaven for us to be, together, because that's why Craig Berube got fired. Like, not because it was his fault. It was, you win the games that you weren't supposed to win, and we lost the games that we weren't supposed to lose. Like, I believe at one point earlier this season, I looked it up, we were the only NHL team that has lost to the Chicago Blackhawks, the San Jose Sharks, and the Columbus Blue Jackets. We were the only team in the NHL that lost to all three of those. Imagine how important those points are now. Right. And same thing probably for you guys.
How do you feel mentioning Craig Berube, the firing? Let's hop right into Coach Drew Bannister getting the call up. How has that been received in St. Louis since his call up? Like, if in Springfield, we see it as almost 2 seasons. It was the Bannister season kind of, and it seemed like, and I think there were more pieces to it, but then there was the post Bannister season that we've had in Springfield, which has been a little bit more inconsistent. How has it been received in St. Louis with Coach Bannister up?
Well, it was not received well to start. I don't know if you guys saw all the information about, especially, I think it was game 1, Kyrou gets interviewed and gets asked about Berube and says, he's not my coach, right? And then gets booed that game. So that's kind of how it started. Since then, just kind of paying attention. No, you don't really hear any information about it, because I think we're all kind of content and happy with it. Nobody wants to say, like, we like Drew Bannister better than Craig Berube. Just because everything that Craig did in his story, and then, obviously winning the cup. But Bannister, it's been the opposite, I guess, for you guys, is he's brought more of the consistency. We're getting kind of, as I was looking, I mean, we're 25, 16, and 3 under Bannister right now. So before that, we'd probably be 16, 16 and something, like right there, even field, because we were getting that inconsistency.
That's interesting. And the thing with Bannister, too, is he's not one of these boisterous personalities. Like, there's a lot of coaches in the league. I mean, Tortorella at the top of the list, but there's a lot of these guys that have these boisterous personalities, and he's not really one of them. He just kind of puts his nose down and goes about his business. And sometimes for an NHL coach, that's not exactly the formula for success. It's a tough thing to, like, we saw that in Boston with Bruce Cassidy. Like, sometimes you try so hard to appease to the media that you either die the hero or you live long enough to become the villain, kind of thing, And I'm wondering if that's sort of what happened with Berube and Bannister's, I think, a little bit of a different approach than Craig Berube.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the great thing that I saw, it was right after Kyrou's hat trick, is like, you'd love to be, as Bannister, you would love to say, yeah, that's because he finally listened to me, right? He finally is doing what I've been telling him. He's finally doing what Craig Berube told him, is get in the deep areas and actually go through, and he likes to be that skilled player up top. But no, he gave it all to Kyrou. And he goes, let's give him the credit. Like, he's the one doing what he figured out he needs to do, and kind of obviously went a lot more in depth than that. But he kind of seems like the more relaxed version of Craig Berube. I mean, former player, still seems more like a player's player, not like, Tortorella or any of those guys that just scream at the guys the whole time.
Right.
But seems like just another different version of Berube.
Interesting.
Yeah, I know Bannister was very well liked here in Springfield, and it created a leadership group and style of kind of just come in, do your job, stay even keeled, and the results kind of follow. And it seems like he's, from our vantage point, the outside looking in with St. Louis, it seems like he's sort of, I don't want to say right the ship, but kind of steadied the ship a bit, where you just kind of listen, do your thing. And, I think he's brought up some players with him, and, maybe they're changing the direction of sort of how the roster is constructed as to what you initially thought at the beginning of the season. But, in Springfield, I think it's kind of been a little bit of a negative having the coach pulled up, but obviously for the parent club, you want the success up there to stabilize and then trickle down to us here in the AHL.
All right. I'm still, and like I said, I haven't seen a whole lot online. People aren't really talking about it yet. But personally, I'd say I'm probably about 50-50 on whether Bannister's back next year. I wouldn't be surprised if the Blues want to go out and get a big name. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Doug still thinks that he's trying to retool and this is going to be ready in 3 years and not 5 to 8 or in 2 to 3 years, then I think he's going to want a more experienced NHL type coach. Because I don't think that Bannister has blown it out of the water, completely overdone it to say he's earned the job, kind of like Berube did, but he won a Stanley Cup. But
I mean, what else does he have to do? I mean, if he based on the way the Blues started, if you get to the playoffs, that's a win. And I mean, you don't have to pay. I mean, if you get yourself a big name and pick one. And by the way, there's not a lot to choose from because a lot of those big names are on other teams, but you got to pay for it, first of all, and second of all, I don't know, those names they're in Montreal one day and then they're fired and they're hired by Ottawa and then they're fired.
They get recycled so much. It's
they
crazy.
do. Whereas you could have a guy like Drew Bannister for whatever, a dozen years. I mean, that's what the Bruins did with Bruce Cassidy, was they had him for as long as they could until it got moldy. But I just assumed that he was going to be the next guy for a long time, just based on the fact that he's relatively cheap. He doesn't have to own the room. I'm sure he's not knocking on ownership's door every day to say, hey, I want things to be done my way. He seems like kind of a team player. I would think he'd be a natural fit for the long-term plan until somebody else falls in your lap. I mean, if somebody's going to fall in your lap, that's fine. But I don't know. Hey, you want to hire somebody else and give us back Drew Bannister? We'll take
it. There we go. Yeah. It's a deal.
We'll take him.
I would say he's brought the Blues. They were we talked about it, inconsistent to start. He's brought the Blues back to where they should have been. He didn't bring when you're looking at them before the year started, you would have said this is right where they were. One spot out of the playoffs, right around where they're supposed to be. So did he exceed expectations for when he started? Yeah, he did. But I don't know if he exceeded expectations for the expectations that were for the team at the beginning of the year. It would be. And obviously, I mean, I'm a fan. I sit at home, so I could be completely wrong.
I mean, what were the expectations at the beginning of the year?
The expectations were to be a team right where we are. I mean, Doug came out and even said he doesn't expect us to win the Central Division. He wasn't even sure if we were going to get second or third. His goal was to be third if we could, or in one of those wild card spots. So he said that at the beginning of the year. He even talked about Colorado being so good. And I think he talked about Dallas being so good. And then now somehow Winnipeg's leading the conference. But that was kind of the goal, was either third in the division or one of the wild card spots. So being, 4 points or 5 points out of a wild card spot right now is probably about where we would have expected.
Yeah. That's probably realistic. Yeah.
Interesting.
So now how about some of these players that have come up, I don't want to say with Drew Bannister, but maybe shortly after Drew Bannister. I would like to start with Walker, who's, I think, following him a little bit this year. He's been doing okay. question that I have, or an observation that I had, right at the beginning of the year, you had Walker, McEachran, and Rosen kind of cleared waivers before they came down to Springfield. And then right after Drew goes up, he brings Walker up with him, and then they extend him for 2 years.
Right.
That made me scratch my head a little bit, because if a few months ago you were willing to say goodbye and hope he cleared waivers to stay in your AHL affiliate, and then Drew comes up and brings Walker with him, and they extend him for 2 years, that was just puzzling. Do you have a feeling on that, or even how a sense of how he's received in St. Louis this season?
As far as how he's received in St. Louis, is we love our Aussie. I mean,
yes, right. Yeah, so do we. We miss him.
St. Louis loves third and fourth line players. I mean, like, that's just, Ryan Reeves, Reed Lowe, who's been on the podcast, Tony Twist, all those guys. We love our third and fourth line players, and just Walker's just heart, even though he's not the tallest guy out there, is something that all the fans love. So everyone enjoyed the re-signing. My assumption would be the reason he got sent down to start the year was because Alexandrov at that point was getting more minutes. And then we still had Vrana up at that point. So not having those minutes, I mean, Vrana wasn't playing fourth line minutes at that point, but I think it, shifted down to where Toropchenko was playing fourth line when then Kapanen was playing third line. So shifted him down, and then that just shifted Walker out. So as far as Walker coming up, I feel like he should have been up the whole time. I mean, it was always about, we need that fourth line to have an identity. And you almost got it with Sundqvist, and then Toropchenko has been coming on. So then you kind of got it with Sundqvist and Toropchenko, but that fourth line didn't have its full identity until Walker got there. And now that Walker's there, I mean, it's Walker and it's Sonny. Normally it's Toropchenko, but sometimes Toropchenko's been moved between the fourth and third. So Walker was that final piece in that identity for that fourth line.
Is there a chance that St. Louis likes their third and fourth liners a little too much?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, yeah. I mean, Torpo, Sammy Blaze, Alexandrov. Like, there's a lot of, in baseball you'd call them 4A guys, where they're not exactly major league players, but they're not minor leaguers either. They're kind of tweeners, and I mean, Adam Gaudette's another one, and Adam Gaudette's breaking Thunderbirds records down here for goals scored, but then he gets called up, and he looks kind of, I don't know, he looked kind of lost, right? He looked like the stage was a little too big for him, and I feel like you re-sign Sundqvist, you re-sign Walker, I'll get to Matt Kessel at some point, but like, I'm wondering if maybe they're just too focused on the bottom six and not focused enough on the top six, just as an observer.
It might just be because there's nothing else to do with the top six. It's like, because that's true. You have Thomas and Kyrou, Shen, Saad, and Buchnevich all signed until next year. So there's five. And then with how Neighbors is doing, he's going to be your six. So your top six is set.
You're not going anywhere.
Yeah, you still have Hayes then, who's dropping outside your top six.
That's right.
Kapanen's there right now. I wouldn't be surprised if he's gone this year. I can't imagine they'd re-sign him. But yeah, I think, and that's kind of the same thing with the defense is the not necessarily, I guess, just the bottom two. So top four is kind of set now between Parayko, Leddy, Krug, and Falk. But now we've got Kessel making a name for him. So now you got five set, and there's really nothing else to move.
And so real quick on Kessel, you like him?
Yeah.
I mean, he just was one of the most underwhelming players here in Springfield, and I can't believe he's caught on up there. And I saw the contract extension, and I thought to myself, in about a year and a half, Blues fans are going to just despise this guy. And it's something, he's a nice guy, and I don't mean anything personally, but like, wow. I mean, he was there. There were just moments where you're going like scratching your head, like, what is this guy doing? And then he gets called up, and he's playing well, and it's an anomaly to us down here about how his success has taken over.
Do you watch any of the Blues games?
We really not many. We don't get to
Yeah,
many.
not many.
Okay.
We don't
I was
get
wondering
many
if
of
there
them out
was
here.
anything that maybe you could see that he did poorly with the Thunderbirds,
Well,
but
like,
somehow
like,
has fixed.
I'll give him
here.
like a lot of it was weird, unlucky stuff. Where like he's skating off for a line change, the puck somehow hits him in a skate, goes the wrong way, goes to the other guy who goes in for breakaway and scores, and you're like, why is Kessel where he is at that moment? Like kind of weird, unlucky stuff. But also not to me, Scott Perunovich, when he was down here, dominated. Like dominated and had a gravitas and an arrogance and a cockiness in a good way that like you were like, wow, this guy is going to do something. And Kessel just kind of, la 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 la, just kind of like skating around, and it's like, I don't know. I was shocked when I saw that extension for him.
If you took the inconsistency of the Thunderbirds this year and the inconsistency of the Blues, put it in a bottle and turned it into a player, that's what I would call a Matt Kessel with what we saw of him. Like we joked at the beginning of this season, we joked about Kessel. The skill is there. I'm not surprised at his success, but it's not something, his play this year is not something that we saw in Springfield. So to his credit, I think he's cleaned up some of that just inconsistent, unlucky, sometimes at times boneheaded type, a turnover deep in the defensive zone. And his mistakes always seemed to be highlighted because they led to goals.
Right.
And I remember I joked with Steve on one of our earlier episodes saying he's just not here in Springfield. The where we play at the Mass Mutual Center is a block away from MGM Springfield. And I joked saying he's not a type of player I would want to see in the casino because I'd run from him. He's just so unlucky. To his credit, and again, the few Blues games that I've been able to see, not a whole lot, but following what he's done this year and checking box scores, he seems to have cleaned that up. So I think you're seeing all the good from Kessel, and he's a UMass kid. So, he's physical in front of the net, it seems. He's clearing the puck. Even when he was sent back down to Springfield not that long ago, I even saw a whole new aggressive Matt Kessel finishing checks that we did not see the past 2 seasons here in Springfield. So I'm happy for him. And that's great. And it sounds like he's a fan favorite. It's just to us, we're like, wow, okay.
This guy,
he's something.
Kinda,
Something, maybe it clicked. He gained confidence. Something happened in the off season where he kind of reinvented himself because he's just not making those bonehead. I mean, I can't think of how many times he deflected a puck into, past Hofer. It just, again, had he not been pushed in front of the crease, it wouldn't have been a goal. He just always found a way to where his mistake led to a goal. And it would be frustrating at times because you saw the skill there. And it seems like he's sort of eliminated that from his game this year. So that's our thing with Kessel.
What kind of role did he have? Was he like a top 2, top 4? Where was he at?
Top line with Rosen, wasn't he? It was him and Callie Rosen, the top line.
To start this year. But Steve, you had a good sort of analogy or explanation of it. He always sort of had, because the skill was there, a top line kind of maybe a top 2 D pairing here in Springfield. And it just seemed like maybe that was too much for him. And so when he was at the beginning of this year partnered with a Callie Rosen, and you had guys like Leo Loof, Kalinuk, and Hunter Skinner for us here in Springfield, he could just do him. And it didn't seem like he was trying to overcompensate for somebody else's deficiencies. He was just able to play. And maybe that's what it was for him. And in St. Louis, when he's a third D pairing, he can just play. And
or
if that's all you're asking out of your third D pairing, he's probably fantastic at that, So
Or you're playing with a guy like Torrey Krug, and you can just kind of give him the puck, and you can be the 1A.
Yeah.
And you give the puck to Torrey Krug and say, Krug, whatever you need from me, I'm here, kind of thing where you can kind of back off a little bit.
And I think that's actually what's helping him out is that having Krug and knowing that Krug's the guy that's going to go. Like, you're the guy that's going to stay. Because I like looking at his stats for the Blues. He's played 29 games for us. He's got 4 assists. So he is that stay-at-home demon that, if the puck's on Krug's side, good chance he's pinching. So you're back, right? If puck's on your side, you're probably not going to pinch. Like, you're just going to keep it back. I want to say he went 8, 10, 12 games before he even got his first assist. But in that time, he was like +4. So I'm like, and when he was on the ice, we were scoring and the other team wasn't. So it's like, yeah, I think
that's what you want from your third pair. Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
So
cool.
Yeah. We brought it up already once, but Gaudette, that was surprising to me for him to still be lighting up the AHL. What's he, 3rd in goals or 2nd in goals? I think
at least
in the league.
He's top 5 in points. I believe he is the goal lead after this weekend.
Oh, okay.
I think he's tied. He's got 37, I believe. I think he's tied for the league lead.
Yeah, I got him down for 37, 20, and so 57 points in 57 games for the AHL. But to only get a 2-game trial up here and then say, nope, not enough. So,
yeah.
And from a guy like Bannister, who's coached him for a year and a half. I mean, and not saying that it's right or wrong. I find he plays with a tenacity that I don't think we see from a lot of guys at this level. And when we do, we see them come in and we go, oh no, not this guy again. Because if it's 1-on-3, he's going to come in, he's going to make a move, and he's going to aim for the top corner. If it's a dirty, grimy game where he's in the corner, he's going to win the board battles. I think that he is the most well-rounded AHL player that I've seen come through Springfield in a very long time. I mean, maybe since Owen Tippett, who is down here and now playing in Philadelphia. Just, you want to play grimy, he'll play grimy. You want to play fast-paced up and down the ice, he'll play fast-paced up and down the ice. You want him to kill penalties, you want him to play power play, he'll do it. He's not afraid to. I mean, he hasn't. I don't know if he's gotten into a fight yet, but he doesn't.
He has.
He doesn't take any nonsense. He's AHL game is chippy, and he does not tolerate that. So you talk about, okay, this is the opponent's star player. Let's get under his skin. Not Adam Gaudette. You can't do it. He's not gonna let it happen. Mm-hmm. And I think that tenacity has rubbed off on other players. And I think that's why when you look at his line mates for most of the year, it's been guys like Nathan Walker, Zach Dean, Zach Bolduc. It's like all these guys that keep getting, you play with Gaudette, you're going to get called up is basically what's happening here. So I think that his tenacity and the way that he carries himself has produced a lot of points, but it's also starting to rub off on the guys he's playing with as well.
Yeah, I remember I was looking this up and I forgot to write it down, but Adam Gaudette is currently 2nd in points in the AHL. And it looks like he's 1st in goals, tied for 1st in goals. But the interesting thing is you go down there and there's not another Springfield player in the top 20. It's like, if you got this guy getting 37 goals and 20 assists, like, who's getting him the puck?
Yeah, well, so it was Matthew Pekka for a long time, and Pekka has been out for, I would say, at least a month. It feels like it's been a month. I believe he's got a shattered ankle, and last I saw him, he was still in a cast, wheeling around. So I don't know if he's coming back anytime soon, but he was close too. And he's another guy who was really starting to fill up the stat sheet just playing with Gaudette. It was always Gaudette, Pekka, and then, like I said, player X, whether it's Walker, Bolduc, Dean, whoever it was. So Pekka, I think, was averaging well over a point a game. Just, it's been a while. And the sad thing for us is, if it wasn't for Gaudette and it wasn't for Dylan Coughlin, who's actually a Carolina a prospect that, since they don't have an AHL affiliate, they gave him to us at the beginning of the year, and he's a defenseman who's been lighting it up for us. Without those two, I don't know where we'd be in the standings. It would be kind of sad, quite frankly. But those two have just been absolutely outstanding.
Did losing Subban at the trade deadline hurt too? Wasn't he playing pretty well down there?
It did. What stung a little bit more was future considerations. We don't know what that means. So he was traded over to Columbus Blue Jackets, Cleveland Monsters for future considerations. So that's kind of what stung.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, look, you have two really good goaltenders in Vadim Zarenko. I believe he's still considered like a top 10 goalie prospect. Colton Ellis has made some great improvements. So on the ice, it's not that big of a hit. You're losing a good character guy. Subban was great for the community. It seemed like he loved being in Springfield. He was bought in here in Springfield. I never said anything bad about him, never heard anyone say anything negative about him. So you're missing that. And I think, we can maybe get into the locker room dynamic a little bit with both teams, but you miss that positive entity in the locker room when you lose Subban, and then losing him for future considerations is kind of like, I don't know. I think he's better than that. I know Steve does as well. That stung a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm Malcolm, I'm pissed. I'm like, you couldn't even get anything for me. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
not even a seventh,
right? Like a pick.
Yeah.
A pick would be fine. You tell me you can't find a fourth liner on Columbus on the Cleveland Monsters that can come here and help this team out. And again, one of the things we wanted to bring up to you is we have all these call ups to St. Louis, not a lot of send downs. So I mean, we got Joey Duzak, who's a defenseman playing forward. McEachern's out for the year. Pekka is out for the rest of the year. We're looking at the roster. I mean, I'm doing the rosters pregame as the announcer. We have 2 scratches, meaning we don't even have enough bodies. We got 3 ECHL call-ups, and it's like, and then we look up and Alexandrov scratched again, Tucker scratched again. Even last night, Dean and Bolduc, neither one of them played, and I get why they're there, and I get why they're probably not cracking the lineup, but the frustration down here is like, can we get a healthy body of some way, shape, or form? I mean, we're 1 point out of the playoffs. Like, do you know how much Dean or Bolduc would benefit from playing top line minutes in a team in a push for a playoff spot at the AHL level? Like, rather than sitting on the 9th floor? I don't know what the answer to that is, but my brain would tell me coming down here and dominating and playing 25 minutes a night would be more beneficial. But again, what do I know?
Well, I looked it up because I don't know what the rules are for like playoffs. I don't know if you guys, I know what the team rules are because I looked that up, but I also was reading about player rules. And apparently, if you are not on an AHL roster at the NHL trade deadline, then you're not eligible to be sent down. So
Correct.
Since Alexandrov and Tucker were with us at that time, they can't come back down to you guys. I would imagine they'd have to go through waivers, maybe. Or maybe is it just impossible? I don't know.
So I believe at this point it's pretty much impossible. My frustration is that at that time, at the NHL trade deadline, like what team is going to claim Alexandrov or Tucker? Like what's the harm in it? Like with all due respect to those guys, the chances of them getting picked up are slim to none. So you make that paper transaction just to make sure that you have the body.
They did that. If you go to Cap Friendly, they did that with Bolduc. Like on March 8th, Bolduc got sent down.
Yeah.
And then he got brought back up. So they did the paper transaction to make sure that it works. I would say, like I said, I'm just a guy that sits at home. But with Alexandrov being, 22 years old and Tucker being 22, 23, somewhere around there. And Alexandrov has played a total of 16 games this year between the Blues and the Thunderbirds. Tucker's played a total of 24 games this year between the Blues and the Thunderbirds. Like, they must have some information that says if we send these guys through waivers, they're gone. Because, like I said, it seems pretty obvious that you should be sending them down. Like, why do you want these 22 or 23-year-olds only playing 22 or 23 games?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's one of those questions we kind of have for you guys is like,
I don't
like what's going on here? Like,
I'll call Doug up and
I mean, and even like, and it's another thing that kind of, again, we are in Bruins country, and I'm a born and raised Bruins fan growing up, and like, I see, especially this time of the year, we're getting to the NCAA, college hockey tournament, and the Bruins sign a goalie out of Notre Dame who's unsigned. Then they sign a defenseman out of Notre Dame who's unsigned. And then Calgary signs a forward out of, wherever, Bemidji State. Like, there are graduating senior NCAA free agents that can help an AHL team. Mm-hmm. And we're 1 point out of a playoff spot. Can we get anybody? Is there somebody on Northeastern, Brown, Cornell? Is there somebody somewhere that graduated that might have an NHL future that could possibly help us right now? And I'm seeing other teams make moves, and I'm not seeing the Blues make them. And I question their investment in what we have going on down here when I see stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever noticed the Blues ever like going out and maybe it just doesn't pop up because it's for as far as Blues news, it's not like super important that they, sign some senior from. I mean, the only
Boston one that the only one I've seen is Anton Malmstrom, who's on the Thunderbirds now, who they signed out of Bowling Green last year or 2 years ago. The Bruins do it often, and they have guys like Mark McLaughlin. But I haven't seen really it happen at all from the Blues. And I'm wondering, I mean, you guys aren't far from, I mean, you're in Big Ten country, aren't you? Where you got Ohio State, Wisconsin, Michigan. You got good hockey out there.
Yeah, like that's what I was going to make a terrible excuse. I was like, well, we don't have anybody like here. Like Lindenwood is the Division I team here, right? So I mean, you have to travel, but I think the organization that's almost worth $1 billion or $500 million, whatever they're worth, can afford to have someone travel to Michigan and Ohio State and Minnesota and go catch games, go watch Snuggerud. You can't go. I'm sure you're still scouting Snuggerud. You can't go be like, hey, this defenseman that's a senior that's graduating might not be decent, or whoever they're playing at the time.
Yeah.
So
that's sort of one of the things that I think we were getting a little frustrated about the Blues general manager situation is the lack of interest in depth.
I will say that
trickles to us.
The Dean call up is confusing to me because he got called up, and as soon as he got called up, we were winning 2 or 3 games in a row. So I understand why he didn't get put in. Like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right.
So that's why he was healthy scratch for the first few games. But then we lost, so then he got thrown in, and I think he got thrown in for 1 game, 2 games maybe, and then he was healthy scratched again. So it's like, if you're gonna, I think that's kind of the issue with what's going on with Doug and what's going on with the Blues right now is we want to be in a retool and we want to continue to be a playoff team and do that push. But when you do that, you take opportunities away from the young guys. And if you're going to take opportunities away from the young guys, then send them back down to you guys and let them play. Like, why is, at least like when Bolduc came up, he came up and they threw him second line immediately. And that's where he was playing, was second line.
And he played pretty well from what I remember.
Yeah, he did pretty good. I think it took him a bit to get a goal or an assist. But as far as what he was doing on the ice, it was good. But then they bring up Dean and they throw him fourth line center. I think, okay, he could be playing 7 minutes a game here or
Preach, Jacob.
20
Preach.
games there.
Preach.
Jacob, let me ask you this, and I am going to be happy to share my input as well. How about Vrana, a player who kind of sent down twice? What was his? Like, we know he was requesting trades and everything like that, but like, what was your sense in St. Louis when he was in that locker room with you guys?
I want to say it's kind of BS how this worked out, because I think Vrana, the attitude he had about the style of hockey that we played, is very similar to Jordan Kyrie's. The only difference is we're paying Jordan Kyrou $8 million over the next 8 years. And that's why we have to keep playing him. And Vrana was like, we can send him down. Nobody wants him, kind of thing. So, our style is dump the puck, get into the corners, battle on the boards. Let's pull
Right.
it out. Let's go to the top, point to point, maybe get a shot, net front. And he wasn't really that type of player. He wasn't that person. That's not the type of game that he plays. And it's not the type of game that Kyrou plays either. So I think, just kind of looking at his stats, in 21 games, he had 6 points. But then when he goes with you guys in 32 games, he's at 27 points. So it sounds like he's doing better for you guys and having more success-ish. You guys are giving me the crazy faces.
Yeah,
On numbers, it looks decent.
Go ahead, man.
I get
You'll
that.
be nicer than I will, so go ahead.
So he was sent down. He's had 2 stints here in Springfield. The first time he lit it up, I think. He was, talking to people around the organization. He was happy. He was walking around Springfield, saying hi to people, scoring goals. That was when Springfield, late December, was going through a stretch of 3 third period comebacks, in a row, where they're down 4-1 in the third and they're winning 5-4, in regulation. And he was a big part of that. He was, if not the only reason for that.
It was him, Pekka, and Gaudette, basically.
Yeah. Then he kind of went back up to St. Louis for a little bit, and then he came down. Since he's come down, I don't know, maybe this is not fair on my part. You see maybe one shift of the NHL Jacob Vrana a game. And you're like, yeah. And then the rest is just I'm kind of going to hang out at the blue line. Hope I can get a, sort of leak out for a breakaway, or he just doesn't see, kind of just is going through the motions. Very rarely will you see him back check. So for me personally, you can see it, the NHL speed. He could be the fastest player on the ice at any moment he wants to be. It's sometimes he doesn't want to be. So it's frustrating. And I tend to wonder, and this is total speculation, but if that is a little bit of a negative in the locker room, and maybe one of the reasons why you bring up a guy like Zach Dean to maybe keep him away from any sort of negative toxicity in the locker room. Hey, we want you here eventually, so develop up here where we can keep eyes on you instead of falling into a little bit of a poor attitude. Mm-hmm. That's sort of my complete assumption. I can be way off on it, but that's sort of my take.
Yeah. And again, being at ice level, to me, it was all about body language. He scored a goal this weekend that was, one move to the blue line, 1-on-1, absolute snipe, top shelf. And you're like, yeah, whoa. And then kind of just floating around. If it's 1-on-3 and they're in the middle of the line change, he'll try to take on the 3. And it's why? Pull it out, dude. You're 1-on-3. I'm the NHLer and these are AHLers, so I'm going to go 1-on-3. Okay, well, you're going to lose because they're professional hockey players. You know what I mean? I've noticed times where he's, and especially the younger guys like Dean Bolduc, where, when you're playing catch in the backyard and you're holding your glove up in the air and somebody throws it and it goes nowhere near you, but you still hold your glove up in the air to kind of say boy, that was a really bad pass.
Yeah, you were supposed to aim here.
Right, exactly. Yeah. He would do that in the game, to the kids. And it's are you here? Why are you... While you're here, can you help develop these kids along rather than point out their flaws? Trying moves that are NHL moves, backhanded no-look passes to nobody and then getting mad at because nobody was there. It's well, we didn't expect you to flip it backhand to nobody.
Right.
We don't know what's going on in the locker room, but the vibe from that player is, I don't belong here and I don't want to be here. And it doesn't matter because I'm going to collect my check anyway. And, I think that's, like Matt said, since the second trip down, the sort of nosedive of the team's record and getting points it's a noticeable, it's a noticeable synchronization there between him coming down and the team not really playing very well, which is weird because you'd expect so much more.
I kind of thought he was doing decent just looking at the stats, but if it was kind of ballooned from
well, I mean, and the stats are the stats, and they're good. But what are you doing when you're not scoring and assisting?
Mm-hmm.
Like, are you helping make players better? Are you killing penalties? Are you helping teams in the neutral zone? Like, just because you don't have a bad plus minus doesn't mean you're not impacting the team positively or negatively, right? So, like, the points are what they are. We're happy to have them, but everything else that's going on the ice with him as a player is not exactly as positive as the numbers I think would reflect.
Do you think so? Detroit obviously kind of gave us him for free. Like, they're paying half of his salary, and we gave him a 7th round pick. That's how we got him last year. Right. And then this year we've sent him down twice. He's gone through waivers twice and not been picked up. So do you expect him in the AHL or NHL next year, or do you think he's going to Europe?
I'd say Europe.
Unless the feeling I'm getting.
Because if he wants to play for $1.5 million a year, somebody in this league will take him. I don't think he wants to play for $1.5 million a year. I think he thinks he's better than that, and I think that'll end up pushing him to Europe.
Yeah, I would say I'd probably lean strongest to playing in Europe. I mean, if it's the right fit with the right leadership, if I have no idea, like you put him in Edmonton or something like that, right? Where there's solid leadership. You're following Connor McDavid and Draisaitl. Like, you listen, dude, you check your ego before you walk into our locker room. Maybe that right team fit. You could see him playing third line
either.
It's true.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, because you see glimpses of the talent. And clearly, he's talented. Again, the speed where he can just within 2 strides leave somebody in the AHL toast. 2 strides, if that. And his snipe from just under the blue line is incredible. Like Steve was saying, that top shelf against on Saturday was just
Saturday,
pretty, man.
But I mean, even still, here he is going out and getting suspended for 2 games because with 20 seconds left in a game where you're down 5 goals, you cross-check a guy in the face. And it's like, dude, you just got sent down to kind of be the leader. Like, I'm the NHL guy down here, the veteran presence, and now you're cross-checking guys in the face with 15 seconds left in a blowout game and getting suspended 2 games. Like, what are you doing? Like, it didn't make sense, and it's, I don't know, it's just weird. It's his whole vibe is strange to us.
Yeah, it sounds like that experiment's probably over.
Probably. Yeah, I'd say so. Kind of one of those fun while it lasted, I guess, a little bit. What's your I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to transition this to because you might be going here. Were you going prospects?
Yes, I was. Vibe on the future. All this being said, 2 things, and then we can discuss. I think the future is very bright. And I do personally, I know this is a big talking point from our fans. What is the future with the prospects and the affiliation? I tend to believe this is a good working relationship here. When we've talked to front office staff, it is exactly that, a working relationship, right? Here in the AHL, teams are trying to win. You're trying to be competitive, but you also know the end game, the result is these kids want and deserve their chance in the NHL too. So it seems like there is a good working relationship with St. Louis. And I think the future is very, very bright. Hopefully and that means for both organizations, if you have a stable, roster in the NHL, that allows you to keep your guys in the AHL to build the chemistry and sort of build the line strength needed to make an AHL run.
Yeah, I think it's done. The contract's done this year, right? And we would have to re-up.
Next year is their 5th year, 24-25, okay. I believe, is when their initial first 5-year agreement runs up. So I think by the end of next year, something will have to be done. It's either find a new affiliate or hopefully, they stick to St. Louis. Have you heard anything from a St. Louis perspective on their thoughts on Springfield?
No, not a whole lot. I haven't seen much chatter about that at all, but I can't really imagine that if it's not, I feel like it's going well, like you said. So we had those times where we had like the Chicago Wolves for a little bit, and then we got bumped down to, the San Antonio Rampage. And then I think we went a year or two without an affiliate. So we were spreading our people around kind of like Carolina is. So I don't see why, if Springfield was interested in going another 5 years, if that's a kind of a standard AHL, NHL contract, why you wouldn't do that. Selfishly, I wish we would come back to Peoria, or I wish we would come back closer so I could catch some games. Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw the Springfield Bison are going to play in the ECHL next year, and that's Springfield, Illinois. So I'm actually on the Illinois side of St. Louis, so it's not too far for me. So I'm like, maybe I'll catch some ECHL games. But that's selfishly for me. But as far as the actual organizations, I don't see why you don't, especially because don't they supply, they supply the coaching staff there for the most part, don't they? At Springfield? Or is it Springfield paid coaches?
I don't know who's paying the bill, but I'm pretty sure everybody is sort of appointed throughout the system. Like when we left Florida as our affiliate, the coaching staff went with their new affiliate, and we brought in an entirely new staff. So I'm pretty sure that's how it works. I will just say, Jacob, fly into Bradley International Airport. It's right outside of Hartford, downtown Springfield. Hey, spend the night at MGM. Come on down for a couple games. We'll show you a great time on the town. We'll take you to Red Rose Pizza. You'll forget that the Peoria Rivermen ever existed. Is what our goal will be at the end of the night. But I
might have to do that, but I didn't share at the begining. I'm also a teacher, so Matt understands what my budget is like.
Yeah, of course, gotcha there. I think I will say, and as somebody who's worked in this market for a long time, and even before I was the announcer, I worked in radio here for a decade, and when it was bad, when we were the Springfield Falcons, it was bad, and that was when they were trying to move teams out west. They dumped us with the Arizona Coyotes, who, guess what, wanted to move a team out. So I believe they purposely tanked our team so that they could move them out to Tucson. And so I've seen the basement. We're on a streak now of, I believe was 11 straight sellouts this weekend.
I saw that on Facebook. I was going to ask you guys, that's like a big deal, right? Like,
it's not the biggest arena, but it's loud. Every interview that we have with the players after the game, they interview them on the ice after wins, and they always talk about the crowd and the energy. And it was so much that Will Bitten dropped an F-bomb after the last game. I don't know if you caught that. he's in the arena going, "You guys are fucking great." We're like, "Whoa, hey!" I think that, and the Calder Cup run. I mean, when you talk about that run to the Calder Cup finals, I believe that more important than anything else when it comes to developmental hockey, winning culture trumps everything else. It doesn't matter about location or travel or media. Winning culture. And when you look at that Calder Cup team that made it to the finals, you're talking about Drew Bannister and Torpo and Alexandrov and Hofer and Neighbors and Kessel, and all these guys were part of that. Matt Kessel's first goal was a huge overtime winner in the playoffs, in the Calder Cup playoffs. So we're willing to dance if you are, and the more that you Jacob, GM Jacob here.
Yeah, I'm in charge.
The more that you guys invest in us, I think the more you're going to reap benefits because of what we provide here. And just real quick, I give a lot of credit to Nate Costa, who's our team president, who said, we need players to walk into these facilities in Springfield and feel like they're in an NHL room. And the locker room, the weight room, the media room, the interviews on the ice. We do the interviews on the ice because eventually these players are going to have to do post-game interviews. So let's start them now. You know what I mean? And I think the more that mindset of making this AHL team as NHL ready as possible, I think is so huge for the development of these players. And I don't know why an NHL team wouldn't want to continue to have that relationship.
Yeah, I feel like it should. I wonder if they'll talk about that this summer and get that kind of scheduled away before the next summer and the contract ends. I wonder if that's a.
Yeah. I kind of, given the state of the Blues, and Jacob, you know more about this than I do. So let's break into some of these prospects coming in, because I feel like it would be one thing you would want to sort of solidify. You've got Dvorsky, who is dominating right now in the OHL as well. Snuggerud has had a great junior year in Minnesota. Sophomore, right? So he, it's incredible.
Wow.
So he's having an incredible year. Does he stay in at Minnesota, or does he come out? They just signed again Theo Lindstein.
Yep.
So here's 3 young guys, 3 first rounders. I would think from an NHL standpoint, you'd want to know where these guys are going to be for the next few years to continue to develop them. And hopefully, if for some reason the affiliation didn't stick in Springfield, you'd want to know that sooner than later. So these guys, hey, Snuggerud, you might play in Springfield, you might not, you might play in Chicago, you might play here, there, wherever. I think it would be to their benefit sooner than later to maybe shore this thing up for the next few years. If, as an NHL club, you're hoping that this rebuild reboots as quick as possible. If I'm not wrong, Jacob, correct me if I'm wrong there. Obviously, you know more about the Blues inside and out than I do. But
no, that would be my assumption too. Is you want them to have a certain spot that they can go to, and then when they go to that spot, they're playing with Blues players, and they're playing with people that they're going to play with in the future. Now, I think the hope for next year is going to be, obviously, all 3 of these players are going to get invited to camp, I would imagine. My assumption is that Lindstein doesn't really have a shot at making the NHL roster. My guess would be that he'll be coming to you guys next year. But I think Snuggerud and Dvorsky are going to have legitimate shots at cracking the NHL lineup to start. I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of get the Jake Neighbors treatment that he got last year, where he was kind of up and down a couple times. I wouldn't be surprised if we're going to throw Dvorsky out there on the second or third line. He's going to play 10 to 15, maybe 20 games, and then we might send him down, kind of thing.
Cool.
So
we'll take him.
Yeah, right.
Who would you, given their roster now, who would you envision if Dvorsky? Because I tend to agree with you. If Snuggerud does forego his remaining years in college and he does, go take the NHL route, Dvorsky, I think, has a legit shot as well. Who are they replacing in the Blues? Who are those guys then? Is it Alexandrov? Is it, does that mean Dean and Bolduc are back and forth, up and down? Because like you said, your top 6 are there they are. So you're now talking about your bottom 6 guys.
Can you hear the squeaking?
That's awesome. What do you got, a dog back there? I love it.
Yeah, squeaking on her toy.
That's fantastic.
I was like, really?
That's great. I couldn't help but smile. I love that.
Go get the tire. The tire doesn't make noise. It's not a Blues Fan Forum podcast if you don't get a squeaky toy or bark at some point in this episode. So.
Love that.
All right. So to answer your question, the easy spot is Kapanen. Kapanen, I imagine, is gone next year. So that kind of opens. He's played up and down the lineup. So that kind of opens that gap for you. My surprise thing is if you get to a point where somehow for sure that Dvorsky and Snuggerud or one of them is a for sure NHL player and you don't want them playing in the AHL, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a Saad trade at some point. I want to say he's either going to have a year or 2. I might have Cap Friendly open right here. I want to say.
Oh, that guy's perfect for the Bruins. Should have traded him at the deadline and taken all the Bruins prospects. Oh,
So next year he'll have 2 years left. So
what's his
maybe
money? Is he making a lot of money?
4.5. So, and then to eat that for 2 years is not super exciting.
And
Where's
he's
Hayes?
mid-30s.
31 right now.
31.
Hayes is the same way. Hayes is he's at 31. He's at 3.5. So
did that Hayes move make sense to you guys at the time? I thought that was a little odd.
I think it.
I don't mean to sidetrack you.
I think it would have made more sense if we would have got the rest of the package. Like if Torrey Krug went the other way and we got, I think Konechny was the other one that was going to come this way.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would have made more sense. As far as a hockey move, it kind of confused me. I mean, they are eating half of his salary, so that helps. That gives you, I guess, more of a reason to give the guy a shot. But I think ultimately, you got a decent third line center. I think you got an excellent locker room guy. And we were kind of talking about chemistry earlier. You got a guy that is like beloved across the NHL. And that might have been the tipping point for pulling the trigger on that one.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's fair.
Sorry, I have ADD. Yeah. I don't mean to sidetrack you.
Right. It's okay. I teach special ed, so I got it.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I'm right up your alley. Yeah.
All right. As far as the other guys, I think it's going to have to take a trade of some sort. It's going to have to take movement out of those guys, or it's going to have to maybe take Brandon Saad and Kevin Hayes accepting a fourth line role, like kind of like Steen did in 2019. He said, I'll take over the fourth line kind of thing. But then you're knocking out Walker again, or you're losing a spot for Toropchenko. So it's kind of like we have too many. I think you asked this earlier, too many third and fourth liners. We love our third and fourth liners too much. We're losing room for.
It's just interesting. Like I'm always obviously in the outside looking in, but curious. Like I know, any GM, and Armstrong's a good one. Like you have like your 5-year plan, you have your 10-year plan all on a spreadsheet right now, and it was confusing to me. I love Walker, but that extension of 2 years, like are you anticipating Snuggerud isn't coming out, or are you going to slow play Dvorsky, or are you looking to trade maybe Saad or somebody else just for prospects? Are you stacking? I mean, that would be cool maybe for us here in Springfield. Are you just going to stack an AHL roster and depth bodies to come up and down? I don't know, because if you're trading a guy like Saad, would you anticipate, like it must be for either picks or prospects, because
probably picks.
You would get future stuff, and you really, depending on when you do it, I don't know how much you get for him. The other option would be this summer is if you can't work out a deal with Buchnevich, you trade him. He's got 1 year left. You can eat the 5.8, which isn't terrible. So then you're sending him somewhere for 2 point something, 2.6. And then that's like, or 2.9, sorry. And then you can get a haul for that. You're sending someone, Pavel Buchnevich, for a full year at $2.9 million. And then you can get back probably, I would imagine, a first and a prospect at minimum.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of also, if that's the case, you're kind of throwing in the towel for next season, unless Dvorsky or Snuggerud or these young guys can somehow fill that role. But you don't have, on the roster as it is right now, you don't have a Buchnevich. Backup.
But I mean, but you do have, and like I think Bolduc will be ready to go day one next year.
Yeah, I do too.
And I, I'm not positive about Dean, but and even Snuggerud, like if Snuggerud comes out, he's one of those guys that I think stays and sticks. He's going to be like the Matt Potts right here in Boston. And the guy that I think, I mean, the straw that stirs the drink down here in Springfield when it comes to the back end is freaking Leo Loof. And I love Leo. We
didn't even talk about him.
And I want to make sure we brought him up because when I see all the stuff with Matt Kessel, Leo Loof is, for a guy his age, one of the most steady, mature, strong back end pieces of this team. I mean, he is, I think, the best defenseman that they have on the roster right now. And I don't know, is he old enough to drink? I don't even know if he's 20 years old. The way he carries himself, he never gets too high, never gets too low.
He's 21.
21. That's a guy who, again, if you're in St. Louis watching Thunderbirds games, that's the guy you want. It's not Matt Kessel. It's not Kalanick. Love Wyatt Kalanick. Love that guy. It's Leo Loof. Yeah. It's absolutely Leo Loof. And that's the guy that you want day one training camp next year to be your third line defenseman, run the power play and killing penalties, because he's absolutely outstanding.
Would you say, now obviously Tucker's not playing a whole lot, but when Tucker was there last year, or the few games he had this year and last year, would you take Leo Loof over Tucker?
Well, I think they're two very different styles. Loof is interesting because a whole game will go by and you don't notice him. And to me, when you don't notice defensemen, it's because they're doing their job. Very simply, they're not loud, they're not quiet, they're just there. And when when guys are screwing up on the back end, that's when they're the loudest. Mm-hmm. Tucker, to me, is more of a physical presence. I would compare him more to a guy like Hunter Skinner. Hunter Skinner loves hitting, loves fighting, can score goals. My problem with a guy like Tyler Tucker is that I think he is a dime a dozen. I think Tyler Tuckers grow on trees. I think that you can get to free agency and you can find 15 Tyler Tuckers. He's a slower Connor Clifton. Like these guys just kind of grow on trees. Loof to me is interesting because he has this comfortable confidence at such a young age. And I don't think that, and I think he was a 3rd round pick. I think Tucker went undrafted. I noticed a gravitas with Leo Loof that I don't think I've seen with Tucker or Kalanick Perunovich. Like I said, Perunovich has this arrogance, cockiness to him in a good way that I loved when he was down here. Loof doesn't carry himself that way, but yet he still has it, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would agree. Leo Loof is probably one of my favorite players to watch this year. I think you got a good one in him. Selfishly, I want him to be a top D-line pairing next year here, but I think to answer your question, who would you rather have? I think from an organizational standpoint, you'd rather take the development of a Leo Loof. I think where his ceiling could be is much higher, stronger. I think where he can improve is his physicality. But I think for where he is now, you'll take the development of a Leo Loof over where Tyler Tucker is. Nothing against Tyler Tucker. I like him too. But like Steve said, I think you could find him elsewhere.
I mean, Leo Loof got in a fight a couple weeks ago, and he's pumping up the crowd after his fight, and the overwhelming fans in the stands who were like, "What? Like, is this the same Leo Loof?" Like, it was out of character in a good way. Like, you've never seen that from this player. And so I think he's becoming more comfortable at this level, and I think that that's only going to get better as he continues to excel his career.
Mm-hmm. That'd be nice. Well, we were talking about kind of the log jam at the top 6. Our whole defense in St. Louis is a log jam. Mean, you just look at Tucker. Like, Tucker could probably be playing minutes, but Perunovich is going to play the last 11 games. I think he has to. Otherwise, for free agency, he enters as an unrestricted free agent. He has to play so many certain games, and as long as he plays every single game the rest of the year, then he'll be a restricted free agent and will be good.
Oh yeah,
so he's going to play that whole game, which I think might have slightly gone into the decision of we went 11 forwards and 7 D-men last night.
That's right.
So, which then hurt when Sundqvist got hurt, and we were at 10 forwards. So
is that something that comes up in arbitration? Like when you're a restricted free agent, if it goes to arbitration, I don't know. I'm just
like
thinking
the game,
like in the negotiations, like, oh, you guys force played me so that I'm I don't know.
Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure a whole lot how arbitration works.
How
for
arbitration
hockey.
works. Yeah,
I hear it a lot for baseball and all
Yeah.
that, but for hockey, I'm not sure.
Interesting.
I just know that RFA typically means a shorter, smaller contract is what you get. You'll get him for we'll sign him for 1 to 2 years for maybe $2 million instead of 4 or 5 years for $4 million. Is someone
you don't have the market competing against you, and that's why it's basically it's kind of a funny thing. A restricted free agent basically means you're not a free agent.
Yeah,
but so when you don't have the market, when you don't have the market driving that price up, you're able to give your guys a more team friendly contract.
they have the ability to sign that player, but most people don't want to do that because then they have to give up draft pick compensation for whatever amount of money that they're giving them. Which I think the last time that happened was Kotkaniemi for Carolina.
That's right. Which was kind of a hot mess.
Yeah, between
there's a lot of vitriol on that
before
one.
that.
Yeah,
that was purposeful. Like, we want this player, but we also want to screw you guys. I think is what that was.
Yep.
All right. Well, I wrote this down. What is this? 3 episodes ago or 2 episodes ago, and I never got to it. But I wrote down next year's lineup, and I never got to talk about this. So this is how I envision the Blues next year. So I got Buchnevich, Thomas, and Kyrou on the top line. I got Neighbors, Shen, and Bolduc on the second line. And I'll be honest, I don't really like that Shen there. So now that might change. And then I got Toropchenko, Hayes, and Dvorsky on the third line. And then
that's a big third line.
Yeah. Saad, Sonny,
boys.
Walker on the fourth. So that's kind of where I was sitting 3 weeks ago on what I saw for the Blues forward lines. And then still had Alexandrov, Dean, and Tucker sitting on the bench.
Hopefully playing in Springfield, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah,
right? Maybe that.
I think Dean's gonna turn some heads. I think that was a really good acquisition and a good get from them in that trade with Vegas. I think it might take him a little while longer than Bolduc, but I think that when he's got it figured out, he's money. And I don't think it's him figuring it out because he can't figure it out. I think that he's learning and growing and trying to become better. And I think that not having Bannister in Springfield was a little hurt to his development. But now that he's in, like, when I see him only practicing and not playing, I imagine Drew Bannister being right next to him in his ear telling him, this is how X, Y, and Z works. And I think that that's great for his development. But I think that's a guy that can really, really turn some heads. And poor Gaudette. Somebody call this man up and play him in the NHL. Right? For crying out loud. Holy smokes. And again, what a good soldier this guy is. He watches Bolduc get called up. He watches Dean get called up and Walker. He's like, fine, I'll just stay down here and mash people and score a crap load of goals in the AHL. Like, God bless him. What a team guy.
I love the story of that too. Like, I mean, he was a throw-in on the O'Reilly trade. It was like, we got this first round pick, we got Mikhail Abramov, and then and we got Gaudette, whoever this guy is, right? And then to see him
he's local to Western Mass.
Oh, that's nice then.
He's local to West.
Like he's a Boston area, but yeah.
Fair. So I wonder if there was a bit of like, hey, get me out of Toronto, kind of bring me closer to home. And then this fell into my lap where now the St. Louis Blues affiliate happens to be in my home state. Yes, make this happen kind of thing. Because I agree with you. I wonder if there was a little bit of that, at his career. And, there might be something to any player just kind of feeling like I'm at the stage in my career where got a young kid, I want to be closer to home, and I'm comfortable being in the AHL. And I think that might be where kind of Adam Gaudette is right now, where he's comfortable and he's dominating and, appreciate a few game call up.
2 games.
2 games.
But you can never overlook that in this league, and especially when it comes to the 24 to 28-year-old guys. once they have a family, and I mean, you look at the NFL. Calvin Ridley just signed with. He didn't sign with the Patriots. He signed with.
Didn't he go to the Titans?
Titans, and he signed
92.
there because his girlfriend is from that area, and like, Gaudette, Tommy Cross, same thing. Paul Thompson, looking back, same thing. They're guys that you get a family, you get married, you have some kids, you want to be. Sometimes it's not even close. You just want something stable. Like you just don't want to be in 9 different cities in 8 years, and I think that's something that's going on with Gaudette right now. Is look, I'm happy here. My family's close. My kid's young. Let's roll with it. And so I think that's good for Springfield because I'm happy. I'll take this guy forever.
Right. The Will Bittons and Hugh McGings of the world too. Those guys, I know they had a short stint in St. Louis last year, but those guys are the energy down here for us. Without Will Bitton and his brother, who's on an AHL contract, and Hugh McGing, it's a whole nother team if those guys are out of the lineup.
I put a funny thing together of we have so many players that have a large minus on their plus-minus rating. Like Torrey Krug, I think is like a minus 27 or something. So I relate it to their golf score. So I make it look like they're the leaderboards of the Masters.
The Masters. Yeah, I saw that. It's like a Masters leaderboard. That's so good. I love that. I saw that. I was laughing my ass off. That was awesome.
I stole it. There's a page called Gateway Grinders. So they did it last year, and I kind of waited. I'm like, I guess they're not doing it this year, so I'm going to do it this time.
Nice.
But Hugh McGinn played 5 games and had a -5 as a plus-minus, and somebody comments on it and goes, very impressive for Hugh McGinn to birdie his first 5 holes.
Oh, poor Hugh. Oh, man, I love that kid.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
All right, let's end here on kind of playoff hope. So I think the last time I looked, the Blues had like a 3 or 4% chance of making the playoffs. Looks like you guys are 1 point behind Lehigh Valley. Does that sound right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with 10 games left, what do you think your guys' percentage of making the playoffs are?
Oh, percentage game. I've never been good with math. Look, I mean, again, this has been the Thunderbirds season. The points are there for the taking. All you have to do is grab them. I think of the 10 games, 8 of them, if I'm, I don't have the schedule directly from last time I looked, I think I counted 8 games are teams that are either, struggling right now, like Hartford Wolfpack, or it's Lehigh Valley 1 point ahead. These are teams that they could win. If I'm being honest, I don't have a lot of faith that I will get consistent play out of this team over the course of 10 games. So, I'm going to say they have probably a 33% chance of making the playoffs, just based on what I've seen in front of me. You win a game, you lose a game. You win a game, you lose a game. That's not going to get you into the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, win a game, lose game. Win a game, lose game. I'm going 50%.
Yeah,
because the biggest problem that this team has had are shots, and they've given up the most shots in the league. They're averaging over 40 shots against, which is, and this is, again, you talk about the Bannister effect. This issue happened when he left, and I don't know. Mm-hmm. Matt always says this all the time. Either they don't know what the issue is, or they're incapable of fixing it. Is that what you say, Matt? I think.
Yeah, pretty. Yeah, that's it.
They give up way too many shots, spend way too much time in their own end, and they lose to teams that they're better than. At one point, Bridgeport was in last place. They had 18 wins. 9 of them were against Springfield. They couldn't beat the worst team in the division for God knows what reason. So you talk about leaving points on the table. I'm going to put it at 50% because it's a crapshoot. Been a crapshoot all year. We'll see.
That's fair.
Well, like I said, it's unlikely the Blues make the playoffs. Are we still rooting for it? Absolutely. But it's unlikely that we make it. So I'm kind of rooting for Springfield because then maybe I have a reason to,
So are you
Massachusetts?
Are you let's make the playoffs and probably lose in the first round, or are you let's miss the playoffs and get a higher draft pick?
So The Athletic actually just came out with a really good article about this. I don't know if you guys read the Athletic at all.
Yeah, we can't afford it.
That's why I can't
That teacher salary, it's got us.
The Jeremy Rutherford did an article that was asking the 2009 Blues teams. It was like Barrett Jackman, David Backus. I don't think he had
Alex
Oshie
Steen,
on, but yeah, those kind of guys. And that in 2009, I think it was that season, they ended up making the playoffs on like one of the last days, and then they got swept. But they were talking about how valuable that series was. TJ Oshie was a rookie that year. So he said just for us to be able to, be playing, having TJ as a rookie, and then how that led to the years of success. And that, even though we got swept, like we didn't have a chance, but having to battle all the way to one of the last days and then making the playoffs and that. So as far as that, I'd love to see, Thomas get some playoff experience as a leader on the team and not, in 2019 when he was a third liner. This would be Kairu's first playoff experience, Booch's first playoff experience with us. Same thing, kind of. Parayko was a stud in 2019, but now he's like the top guy for our defense. So a lot of experience would, I think, help if again, we're doing that retool and our plan is to challenge in the next 2 years.
Binnington is still a very capable goalie too.
Right.
So, my big thing is always when you get into the playoff, it's a whole new season. And I think hockey more than any other professional sport, you look at what Florida did last year in the first round, even just taking the Bruins to Game 7, then winning it, and then all the way to their Stanley Cup run. And, Binnington is a very capable goalie. You can win a 1-0 game.
Yeah.
And Binnington is the guy, he can do that. And so that's how I feel against, as far as the Thunderbirds. I think we have two very capable goalies. We have the offense. I think if I'm being I think the Blues making the playoffs would be a good thing for the player development of the Deans and the Bolducs of the world, and even Neighbors and Torpo as well. So it would be good for the Blues. If they don't make it, I would hope if the Thunderbirds make it, you can send Dean and Bolduc down to again get playoff experience, albeit in the AHL, but it's still. I think there's something to be said for that.
There's
it creates
value.
A winning culture. Yeah. There's value there. You're playing playoff hockey at whatever level you are. I think is always a good thing. So I think both of these organizations. I think it's funny. We talked to Patrick Williams, who's the AHL writer, and he says it all the time. A lot of times the NHL, the parent club, kind of what happens with them does trickle into the AHL, and it's funny to see the parallels of both of these teams this year, where the inconsistency, the team build, the roster construction is very similar, and we're seeing both clubs now on the outside looking in, but with a legit chance.
Both
spot out. And both. Yeah, and both, I do believe, I believe this, both can be a dangerous playoff team. You have the goaltending, which can lead you as far as it can take you, and you do have the offensive skill and talent there if needed.
Mm-hmm. Selfishly, I'm also hoping the Blues somehow find a way to make the playoffs, because I feel like that would help the podcast.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's why we need a long playoff run.
Right, because I
Yes.
haven't got to experience that yet either. And, I enjoy doing this. And once the Blues season's over, I stop. So let's make it a little bit longer.
Let's keep them checks coming. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny.
All right. Anything else, guys?
I'm good, Jacob.
I'm good.
This was such a blast. Yeah, thank you so much for inviting us on and talking some hockey. This has been a fun episode. This has been great. Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah.
No problem. Thank you guys so much for coming on. I know I kind of reached out to you, and I think you there was a day or two before you responded, and I was like, oh, dang, they don't want to. It worked out, so.
Yeah. No, we just, we were trying to coordinate and make sure that we just got to get on the same page. Us,
yeah.
We're so freaking busy, the both of us. But no, we really appreciate it. And for real, anybody who's listening ever makes their way out to Springfield for a game, hit us up. We'll show you a good time. Anybody has any questions out there in St. Louis land that wants, about players or organization, or, like I said, I'm kind of right in the thick of it, and Matt's got the bird's eye view, and we're more than happy to contribute and collaborate and talk. And this was great, Jacob. We really appreciate you reaching out.
Awesome. Well, great.
Also,
episode.
I never check my Facebook messages. I don't know about you.
I get
don't even
them sent
answer
to my
texts.
phone, so
Yeah, I don't answer anybody. I human contact.
all right. Do you guys do "Let's Go Thunderbirds," or do you have a different, more creative saying than that?
Let's go T-Birds.
Let's go T-Birds. All right, let's go T-Birds, and let's go Blues. See ya.
All right, there goes our interview with our friend Jacob from the St. Louis Blues Fan Forum podcast. It was a great time. We really enjoyed that entire conversation. And, of course, it's brought to you by our friends at White Lion Brewing, their new location in Amherst on North Pleasant Street. Of course, right in downtown Springfield at Tower Square at 1500 Main Street, the place to go prior to Thunderbirds games. As you know, parking is a little tricky, although that garage is coming along nicely. Not ready yet, though.
So close.
So close. Make sure you park in the Tower Square garage and then swing into White Lion. Show them your T-Birds ticket, and they'll validate your parking for you. While you're there, grab some Boomer Nachos, Seuss Mac and Cheese, some Hall of Fame wings, along with any of the 20-plus beers they have. And don't forget, you can find your favorite White Lion beers in your local liquor store cooler. White Lion Brewing, now in Amherst to downtown Springfield. Make sure you tell Ray, Barry, and the folks over there that the guys from SRG sent you. By our friends at YOLO Healthcare Consulting. They offer education, training, tutoring, coaching, and mentoring for healthcare professionals and students. Founding owners Yolanda Mero and Lola Rios are doctorate-prepared nurses with over 40 years combined bedside, academic, and leadership nursing experience. They offer assistance to individuals navigating the healthcare system for long-term care and home care planning needs. Founded right here in Western Mass, YOLO Healthcare Consulting are the ones to contact to help you bridge the gap if you're traversing the healthcare landscape. You can reach out to them at yolo.healthcareconsulting@gmail.com or give them a call at 413-627-0609 and make sure that you tell them that the fine folks at SRG sent you. And lastly, by our friends at Landscaping That Fits. I'll tell you, Matt, I signed up. I got Landscaping That Fits. They're coming. They're gonna do all my fertilizing for me this summer, so I don't have to worry about it. Rob, was an absolute pleasure. And you, too, can unlock the secret to a lush, weed-free lawn with Landscaping That Fits his exclusive Weed and Feed lawn service program. Serving the East Longmeadow, Agawam, Springfield, and Wilbraham area, our program is designed to elevate your outdoor space to new heights of beauty and health. Experience the difference as their expert team nourishes your lawn with premium nutrients, promoting robust growth while eliminating unsightly weeds. Say goodbye to tedious weed pulling and hello to vibrant, envy-inducing lawn. Let Landscaping That Fits handle your yard work while you relax and enjoy the stunning results. Give them a call today at 413-847-0338 to secure your spot in their exclusive Weed and Feed lawn care service program. You can go online at landscapingthatfits.com. Check them out on Facebook as well. And don't forget, they also offer a wide variety of additional services like weekly mowing, spring cleanup, mosquito and tick control, fall cleanups, aeration, overseedings. They do it all. So check them out at Landscaping That Fits. Your lawn deserves nothing less. From all of us here at the SRG podcast, I know that one ran super long, so we can kind of get out of here. But Matt, take us home.
Let's go T-Birds.